Hello friends, Yaakov Fruchter here, speaking to you from Winnipeg Beach in Manitoba. Every Wednesday night we come together in a Rome Espresso bar on Bloor Street for our special discussion group and class called Growth Through Torah. We believe at the Annex Shul that by exploring the weekly Torah portion and pulling out the key Jewish values and then grappling them with them as a group, we're able to grow through the process. Hence the name Growth Through Torah. Because I'm in Winnipeg this week, figured I would try out a new concept that I'd like to call GTTM, known as Growth Through Torah Moment, where each week, in addition to our class, which we hope you'll join us for, we will also be recording and placing online just a quick nugget from what we discuss at the class, and it will be known as the Growth Through Torah Moment. So here will be the first edition in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and you can time it. So this week's Torah portion is called Parshat Devarim, which in English is known as Deuteronomy. It is also the first parsha in the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy. In English, Deuteronomy means the second law. And in early rabbinic tradition, in fact, the book of Devarim was known as a Mishnah Torah, the second law. The reason for this is that the entire Torah up to this point and the experiences of the Jewish people in the desert is repeated by their leader Moshe, by Moses. Generally, the names for a weekly Torah portion are derived by the first meaningful word in that Torah portion. In the same way, the Hebrew names for each of the 5 books are also derived by the first meaningful word within that book. And so one of the questions that comes up is, why, though, would this book be called Devarim, which is, in fact, Devarim means words. And although it is the first meaningful word in the book of Devarim, it doesn't seem to really be that interesting. You know, the whole Torah is about words. So why is this book in particular called the book of words, Devarim? And so I've read many wonderful answers, but there's one that really resonated with me, which is really about who is sharing these words. And that person, of course, is being Moshe. The last book of the Torah is in fact all taking place in the final month of Moses' life, before the Jewish people enter the land of Israel, which we know that Moshe doesn't actually join them in that final journey and dies in the desert. And so what is so interesting about Moshe and the use of words? So we see early in the book of Exodus, in the book of Shmot, that when Moshe first comes into the picture, he meets God and has this conversation, and God tells him, you know what, you are going to have to speak to Paro and take the people out of Egypt. And what's Moses' response? He says, Lo ish dvarim anochi, I am not a man of words. And from there we learn that he had a speech impediment. And so it's this amazing thing that's going on. This man who at the beginning tells us he can hardly speak ends up becoming this incredible Jewish leader, the greatest Jewish leader of all time. And not only that, he becomes the man of words. In what way? We see that in this week's Torah portion and in this whole book that starts with the words that Moshe shares. He becomes the man of words. Why I think this is so powerful is because we find ourselves today right in the middle of the 9 days. And these are 9 days of mourning leading up to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which is a day in which we commemorate all the incredible and terrible destruction that happened to the Jewish people throughout history. And what this day really reminds us of is that although it is this time of destruction, the sages teach us that this eventually will be a day of holiday, that the Mashiach, the Messiah, is actually born on Tisha B'Av, on this day of destruction. From destruction, growth can take place. And what an incredible lesson we learn from Moshe, that this man who had this difficulty in speaking ends up becoming the person who leads the Jewish people from the state of slavery to the state of ultimate freedom. And within each of us is also that potential that although the things that might be toughest for us and the areas in which we feel we may have the greatest impediments might actually be the areas in which, and with those specific skills, we're able to affect the greatest change. And my wife Ryla was just sharing with me this quote from Richard Hirsch, written in the Machzor Le'amim Noraim prayer book for the days of which is, we cannot become the person we long to be by ignoring the persons we have been. Moshe needed to be reminded that he was not a man of words, and yet it is exactly with words that Moshe was able to lead the people and become the most important leader in Jewish history. Have a wonderful week.